Welcome back to the RCA channel, viewers. I have next to me Barry. Barry's come all the way from Perth for a fit. He's done the rounds, he's been around, he's had a problem with his left foot for a long time, and that's why he's made his way all the way over here. So Barry, give us a very brief rundown of what happened to your foot back in 2017.
Just doing some bike riding back in Dublin, I got a sharp pain in the bottom of my left foot. Didn't go away, and since then really just struggling with control. I'm overpronating, walking and cycling, and yeah, just reached sort of peak levels that I needed to fly all the way to Brisbane.
Barry gets symptoms when he walks and when he rides. He's basically got a sense that this left leg is like disconnected and it doesn't have good neurological control. He's tried all different types of orthotics. He's had imaging done on his foot. They found a little neuroma between his second and third metatarsal, which they think is the causal mechanism. But there's a couple of things about Barry's story with his symptoms that seem odd to me. Your pain that you had, that sudden onset pain, was very rapid onset on that ride, because it came on in a couple of seconds. Neuromas, or a Morton's neuroma in the bottom of your foot, generally it's a slow onset, slow building type of thing. They don't usually suddenly come on like that. So that makes me wonder if maybe the neuroma is a red herring. It's something that's in there, but it may not be causal in the mechanism of the pain or the symptoms that you're getting. Barry's had an X-ray and an ultrasound, but we don't think he's had an MRI on that foot. And one of the things I've just spoken to him about off camera is the possibility that this could be something else other than neuroma. So the two things that jump out at me as being potential causes here are a thing called a plantar plate tear, which is a ligament tear on the bottom of the metatarsal head, or potentially a fractured sesamoid. Now, we'll try and get some little images up on the screen to show you what these are, but sesamoids are little bones on the bottom of the foot which are embedded in the middle of some of your flexor tendons, and it is possible that you've cracked a sesamoid in half and it hasn't healed. That would be one thing that would make you avoid putting pressure on that part of your foot when you're walking and riding. And the other possibility is a chronic plantar plate tear. So I'm hoping that there's something I can do with Barry's position which is going to, make him suddenly feel amazingly better. But what I suspect is going to happen here is we're going to optimize his position and then give him some direction in where to go medically to try and get rid of this problem, to sort it out. Because it doesn't seem like it's getting any better, does it,
No,
Barry?
it's not getting better.
No, it's been 7-8 years and he's kind of still avoiding it. He's not walking correctly. He's not riding correctly. No significant symptoms on the bike though with this one. He sounds like he's compensating in a very annoying fashion, which is nonetheless not actually giving you a lot of pain and symptoms.
That's correct.
No one-sided saddle sores, no knee pain, no nothing, but you feel like this leg is kind of disconnected from the stroke. You can't push down on the pedal properly, all of that sort of stuff. So we're going to have a very, very close look at Barry's foot first up, and we'll see what we can find. Hopefully there's some signs in there that will point me in the right direction. We'll bring you guys along for the trip. The first thing that jumps out at me is you do have a decent pelvic tilt, with the left side being higher than the right, probably by around 6 or 8 millimeters or so. So the left hip sitting higher. That SIJ is okay. Show me the other one. That one's not okay. Show me the right one again, same trick. Okay, so your left ilium is very reluctant to rotate backwards. Your calves are different sizes, so your left calf is a little bit bigger than your right. Your glutes are fairly similar, so that's something. We'll have a very close look at that left foot in a minute in different circumstances, but just looking at it, it doesn't look terribly structurally different from the top, so that's good. Tense your quads up, mate, and lock your knees back straight. Your left quad is gone, isn't it? So your right VMO is like twice the size of your left one. That is interesting. So there's a bit of weakness that's crept in here, or maybe that was pre-existing and it's unrelated, but most likely it's that this leg doesn't want to drive through properly, both on the bike and when you're walking, which is then leading to this sense that you've got no power through this left leg. See how this toe sits up?
Yeah.
Has it done that for a very, very long time?
It was actually worse. It's getting better. I work with it.
Yep.
So this was
clawed.
Yeah. And the second one over here was even worse.
Interesting. So it was on both feet.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And there was no gap between these toes.
Yep.
So it was really tight.
Do you feel like that was there before you hurt your foot back in 2017?
I honestly couldn't tell you.
Couldn't tell.
Never paid attention to my feet at all.
It's curious that it's worse on that left side, and that neuroma that they've seen on that ultrasound it's between the second and third metatarsal head, isn't it? Yeah. There could be a correlation there, so we'll see. Now, stay there, mate. Lock your knees back straight, and then with both hands, stretch up towards the ceiling like this as high as you can. Just keep your heels down on the floor, and the tilt stays exactly the same. So there's a chance here that you've actually got a substantially shorter right leg, mate. We'll see. Have a rest again, drop your arms, Now, how's your forward mobility, Barry? If you keep your legs locked back straight and come down, how bad are you? Pretty bad. It's about average. Come back up. Bend your knees about 20 degrees. Keep them on that angle and then go again. Bend them a little bit more. That's it. Now go down. Your hip mobility is actually reasonably good. It's just your hammies and your back don't like moving that much. See, look at the difference. This patella is really, really mobile laterally, and your right one is really stiff. So you've been probably loading this right knee quite substantially more than the other one for 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And these are all the flow-on effects of it. All right, let's have a look at this foot, mate. If I crush the foot sideways like this and grind it in, do you get any of that? Like, does it hurt at all inside?
It's not pleasant, but it doesn't hurt.
No. If I do it, it's the same thing to the other one.
Oh, nothing.
Nothing. So there is a bit of a sensory, like that feels a little bit different to the other one.
Yeah.
Yeah, deep inside. I'm going to guess that this is probably a plantar plate injury. I can't feel any evidence of a neuroma, although if I tuck right in behind there, Barry, does that shoot down into your toe or anything? No, nothing like that. The neuroma is kind of neither here nor there for me. I can't feel it, which means it's obviously very, very small. When these Morton's neuromas get quite big, they're actually really palpable. You can sort of dig your fingers in between the metatarsal heads and really feel them. I can't really feel anything in Barry's foot except for an exceptionally prominent metatarsal joint on the bottom of the second ray. It feels almost like the plantar plate has been torn and it's like calcified up, a bit of basically arthritic wear and tear. Very similar to this sort of thing that happened with you here, where when you tear this ligament, it can kind of calcify in the months and years leading afterwards. I'm going to guess that that's what's causing Barry's problem, but we'll see. Bend your legs up towards you, mate. Oh my God. So this is a great example of a very simple tibial leg length discrepancy test. Now, I mentioned to Barry about 5 minutes ago that there's a chance that he's got a shorter right leg, and here we are. Look at this. It's a pretty substantial difference. So I've got Barry's ankles and feet next to each other here, and you can see very clearly his left tibia and his left patella sit, I don't know, 8 millimeters higher than his right.
Jesus.
It's a really big discrepancy. Can you see it from where you are, Barry? Just lift your head up and have a look. Yeah, so your right tibia is substantially shorter than your left, right, in this case. Now, this could be a red herring. This could be something that's completely unrelated to Barry's problem, but I'll bet you it's not helping. I don't think it's going to be doing you any favours. This is a pretty big discrepancy. I'm going to say that's at least 5 millimetres, probably closer to 7 or 8. So, yeah, it's a doozy. Lift your bum up off the deck for me, Barry. Lift it up and then put it back down again and relax. That's it. Let your legs go nice and floppy. Wow. But after setting Barry's pelvis like that and tugging on his legs more or less evenly, you can see the difference in where his heels sit. I don't know if that'll show up on the footage, but his left heel sits substantially lower than his right, indicating that his left leg may be at, possibly up to 10 millimeters longer than his right, but I'm going to guess it's more like sort of 5 to 8. We'll see. So this won't be helping your cause, Barry. Major leg length discrepancies like that are not conducive to good pedaling symmetry.
Yeah.
They rarely help. All right, we got 45 degrees. We got 30 degrees. That's a normal-ish kind of hip. Your rotation's pretty average. Your hip mobility is good and deflection. Your hammy's all right. So look at this one. Yeah, 45 degrees, 30, 25 degrees. Very symmetrical hip range, which is nice. Your rotation range is pretty similar. Hip's got the same degree of flexion, happy days. Hammies are about the same. All right, so we've got a substantially shorter leg and we've got a potential plantar plate tear. Now, let's go back in time 8 years to when you damaged this foot. One possibility here is that the reason that it was your left foot that went was because of the leg length discrepancy. So you think, well, why that one? Why did that one cop it and not both, or not the right one? if you've got a substantially longer left leg and it's manifesting itself as a fair bit of pedaling asymmetry, you may be loading that left foot really differently to the right one, which has then led to the problem. So it might have actually, you know, the shoe that you said you were wearing back then was too tight and it was squashing your foot a bit. That might have been partially causal, but the leg length discrepancy loading your 2 feet differentially could have been part of it as well.
Time and place.
Yes, yeah, and then because you've then come out of the other side of that with this little injury, which I think is probably a plantar plate tear, but I'm not 100%, because you've come out of the other side with this injury, it's then caused you to start compensating around this problem in an entirely different, annoying way, which has then led to this whole schmozzle that we find ourselves in now. So yeah, it's a good theory, and one of the ways that your nervous system on a bike can deal with that shorter right leg is by dropping the right side of your pelvis down so that you've got a shorter reach to the pedal with your shorter right leg, right? That's pretty logical. When you do this, it's going to load the outside edge of your right foot and the inside edge of your left foot.
Pull the other one in.
Yeah, so it is potentially causal in some of the pattern that you're feeling, some of the sense that this left leg is disconnected. What I'm really hoping is that a small amount of the problem is that, and a large amount of the problem is the other stuff. Because that's going to be really hard to fix, but the other stuff will be easy. I'd like to take a brief moment out from this video to thank our channel sponsor, Prungo.
Who are Prungo, Neil?
Prungo are the developers of the FluxGo, a targeted red light therapy device aimed at reducing inflammation and promoting recovery.
Okay, and have you been using it?
I have indeed. For the last 12 months, I've been using this device fairly religiously on a number of different old injuries that I've had with excellent results.
Okay, what are the excellent results?
Really big reductions in chronic inflammation that I've had for a long time in certain difficult areas, and a big reduction in focused acute inflammation that I've developed from small injuries that I've incurred across that time.
Okay, and have you been recommending it to your clients?
I have indeed. A number of my clients have gone out and purchased this device with really, really good feedback. In addition, a number of the RCA staff members have used this device on old injuries that they've had, also with excellent feedback.
Okay, so where can people buy this device?
Have a look in the link below. We've got an affiliate link down there to purchase the Prungo. It's a really, really good device. I highly recommend it. Now back to the video. Yeah, that left SIJ is not moving cleanly on the downstroke. So one of the things I identified with you off the bike was your left sacroiliac joint is not rotating properly.
Yep.
A pretty common side effect of riding asymmetrically for a long time and also walking asymmetrically, but it is definitely not functioning well on the bike. You don't have a massive hip drop on this side, so you're not like super twisted. You've got a very subtle right hip drop, but it's very, very minimal. So you don't look highly asymmetrical from above. That's good. This will be the $64 million question, yeah. So from the right, your seat height looks almost perfect, Barry.
Yeah.
It looks almost perfect. And from the left, it looks like it's about 6 mil too low. So you've got really differential leg extension. You're a very good compensator, which makes it very hard to see the difference, right? You gotta have a pretty keen eye to spot it, and you got to have a pre-existing suspicion that you've got a longer left leg, which we know that you do, right? So you're a high-level compensator, and you're doing a very good job. You drop your left heel a little bit more than your right heel because you're trying to subconsciously make your left leg shorter. And you close down the knee angle at the bottom of the stroke just a little bit more on the left leg. So yeah, a very high level compensator. This would be one of those ones where if you had like a motion capture software on you or something, it'd show up as like a little tiny angle difference, and most people would just say, it's close enough, there's nothing to worry about. So because you're such a high level, what I call a multi-joint compensator, you compensate here, there, and at the foot for this structural leg length difference that you've got, it makes it almost impossible to see unless you really know what you're looking for. And from the front, the knee just dives across towards the top tube. Your left knee sits much closer to the bike than the right, doesn't it, like this? And you sense that as like a pronation or an eversion in the rear half of that foot.
So one of the correction strategies I'll do when I'm cycling.
Yeah, to pull the knee out. Yeah, I can see you doing it.
And then after about 30 seconds, I'll drift back in again, and then I'll fix it again.
Yeah, cool. I'm gonna make a bold, what's the word? A bold claim here, Barry. I suspect that most of this is a structural leg length difference.
Yeah.
And it's manifesting itself in a foot injury, which has then magnified the problem. But you're such a good compensator for your structural leg length difference, and it's so well hidden on the bike that you've just never noticed it because you compensate so well. So yeah, this will be an interesting one. Well, we're going to start firstly by compensating for your shorter right leg. We're going to raise the seat about 6 to 7 millimeters, and then we're going to insert a fairly large shim underneath your right foot and see what happens firstly with that. What I want to see is, at the moment, we've got a situation where your left glute med appears to be functioning at a really high level, what I call a tonic contraction. So your glutes on the downstroke, they're supposed to pump on and off. They're supposed to go on, off, on, off. Your right one is doing that a little bit. Your left one is on the whole way through the stroke, right? It's performing a stabilization roll rather than an actual pushing down on the pedal roll. And that is not a good sign. So we want to see your left glute lose some of that hypertonicity. And then we want to see your left sacroiliac joint rotating properly. And then hopefully the rest of the kinetic chain will just open up and life will get better. It'll be interesting to see what happens with your foot when we solve for that. Because if suddenly the foot feels more square and stable, if we're really, really lucky, 80 or 90% of the problem will go without us actually having to do anything funky to your foot, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah, fingers crossed. We're about to find out. Okay, so here's another potential cause of some of your trouble. Your right foot is a solid, I don't know, 4 millimeters at the first ray and then 4 millimeters at the met head. So the met heads are staggered by about 4 mil. So Barry's currently using a set of the Cleat's midfoot adapters. I use these all the time as a method of getting the cleat position further back as a diagnostic thing. Why would you want to run the cleat position that far back? Well, we have done previous videos on running midfoot or near midfoot cleat positions. I'd urge you to go and watch those if you're interested. Barry's done it for a very logical reason, which is that he's got back then he had forefoot pain issues, and he wanted to pull the cleat back to basically deload underneath the metatarsal heads, and it worked quite well. Since that time, he's told me off camera that his foot has settled down quite a lot, and there's not really any focal pain underneath that second met head anymore. So my strong suspicion is he probably doesn't need the cleat 40 millimeters behind the ball of his foot anymore. We'll try and get the cleat back to around sort of 20 millimeters behind the metatarsal joint, which I would class as a reasonably rearward sort of endurance orientated cleat position for someone with this size foot, and we'll see how he goes. It could be one of those things where we try it and he immediately goes, oh no, I can feel the pressure, it hurts, and we'll just back out of it, but we'll give it a shot. So what I'm going to do is use a 5 millimeter shim stack made up of a 2 and a 3 millimeter shim, and we're going to use those initially to give us an idea of where precisely the leg length difference is going to end up at. That's what we're looking for. So we'll start there. I'm going to cut the orthotic to provide a little hole there, like a divot that your second ray can sit down into. So the best way to do this is to try and place the second met head underneath here and then cut it out from below. And what I'm going to attempt to do, hopefully, is leave the black covering in place and actually take out all of the white material in a dome underneath. Fingers crossed we can do this neatly. So you hold the foot like this, place it where it's going to sit on the orthotic. Now the second ray, right there, I'm going to mark it with my finger and it's going to go right there. Right on that mark. So this is where we want to alleviate or remove or relieve the orthotic a little bit underneath. This is the coolest little bench grinder I've ever seen in my life. This is a jeweler's bench grinder, people. One of the best tools I've ever bought in my life. So we want to take about a, I don't know, 5 to 10 millimeter diameter area away here to try and just let Barry's second ray sit down and just alleviate a little bit of the compressive pressure right on that point. And that will do. Now it doesn't have to look super pretty, but you can see that black bit in the middle, that is the very bottom of the black covering that we've come through to. So we've taken away, I think the orthotic here is about 2.5 millimeters thick, so we've taken away about 2.5 mil, and that section, feel it there, Barry, with your fingers, it's really soft. So hopefully Barry's second ray, where that calcified section is just going to sit in that little divot, and it's going to unload it from above, and hopefully give him the relief that he needs in that point. So with your left foot, you still feel like you need to kind of do that a little?
Yeah, I'm still driving in on that big med head.
I forgot to put it back in. So I've just pulled Barry's orthotic out of his shoe, and we've actually forgotten to clip the level 3 arch back on, so no wonder it didn't feel quite as good, mate. Let's just try that again with the level 3 and see how we go. I took it off to grind the orthotic and I didn't put it back on. That's funny. That'll feel a little bit nicer, no doubt. Oh, look at the difference in your leg extension. Wow. So that arch module really closes down the extension of your left leg really severely. Yeah. So the shim, I was going to go up to 6 millimeters, but we might have to go up to 7 or 8. Oh yeah, it makes your left glute fire way worse. So the arch module is acting as a leg length shim. When it's not there, your left leg is longer. Yeah, so we need a bigger shim underneath the right foot. So the seats come back up another 3 or 4 millimeters. Now the leg extension looks good from the left. I've increased the height of the shim on your right foot to 7 mil, Barry. That is very, very good. Both of your glute maxes, both of your glute medians activating at the same level. The SIJ is rolling forwards really, really neatly. Very, very good. Nice and square. No significant hip drop. That looks really neat. Yeah.
I feel like I'm starting to toe drop.
Like this?
On my left.
To point down? Yep. My guess is the next move, we need to stagger that cleat slightly. So remember how your 2 feet were different sizes? So what you're feeling at the moment is that because we've increased the shim stack height up substantially, one of the negative effects of running a big shim to compensate for a structurally shorter leg is that as you do this, as you push the cleat further down off the sole plate of the shoe, you get a lot of what Steve Hogg calls rocking torque. And I really like that sort of description. You're basically increasing the stack height of one of your cleats only, in this case your left one, by a huge amount, right? So the stack height would normally be like 11 millimeters, suddenly it's 18 millimeters because we've got a big shim underneath it, right? This creates a system which is less stable. It means that as you go to apply force on this foot, there's a lot more leverage which is going to cantilever your foot around that rotational center of the cleat and make it unstable. And so when you get up to a decent sized shim, usually the tipping point is above 5, 6 or 7 millimeters, depending upon how big the person's foot is and that sort of stuff and how forward the cleat is. But when you get up to a decent sized shim, often you need to do tricky stuff like run the left cleat slightly further back to basically stabilize the foot more over the pedal on this side. So what we're going to do for you is try you by staggering the right one forward because we can't move the left one any further back. It's as far back as it'll go. So we'll try staggering the right one forward and see if it gives you a better sense of stability of that left foot. That's our next move. That's ambiguous. What does it feel like?
Not much different.
No. It's kind of like, not a big change, hard to tell. Do you still get a sense that that left foot is toe down?
Maybe not as much. But I'm still wanting to just shift it a little bit, but that could be a bad habit.
Yeah, well, you are definitely going to have ingrained motor patterning here, and you've also got ingrained weakness of that left leg with all the stabilizing musculature. So you'll definitely get a bit of that. I think we better test it the other way as well. That move does nothing bad, whereas the previous move made you look slightly worse from the front. This one does nothing bad, but it also doesn't, I can't tell if it's better. Do you get a sense that it's a little bit nicer?
I feel like it's slightly better.
This would make sense because you do have 2 different size feet. This would also be a logical thing to test. Now, this is an easy one to undo. So let's say that you ride it for a couple of weeks and you decide that it doesn't feel good as you adapt. You can just move it back again. You're pretty proficient at moving cleats around, I imagine, after all these years. So this is an easy one. I'm going to give you a bit of carte blanche to muck around with this stagger in the future. Feel free to take it out again if for any reason you don't feel like you need it long term. It's a very easy thing to put in and take out. That little divot is working very well, I think, mate. I'm hoping that even though you, I suspect, have a chronic plantar plate tear that's going to be sitting in there annoying your foot for a long time, if we can at least get you pedaling with pretty good symmetry,
well, correct.
It'll give you a chance to build up the weak muscle groups again. So I'm going to give you a bit of rehab off the bike. My suspicion is that today will get you about 70 to 90% better than what you were before. And then the last bit is probably going to take about 3 to 6 months of you strength training these weak muscle groups and basically restoring good functional symmetry back to your body. That is really, really good, man. If anything, adding the level 4 arch actually pulls your knee further away from the top tube than your right one, like it's the opposite of what it was before. Do you get a sense that the right one could use a little bit more as well?
I feel like the left is now sitting further away from here.
Yeah, that's exactly what I said. I agree. I think what we might want to do then is go for a level 4 on the right as well. So one thing we're learning about you, Barry, is you're very, very sensitive to the arch support on both feet. And it really changes the amount to which you hold your knees away from the top tube. So your arches are very if they're allowed to collapse, for want of a less dramatic word, if they're allowed to collapse a little bit, they will. They just boom, straight across. So if we use no arch support, you'll get a lot of this, you know, tight tracking to this internal femur rotation, because just changing that by 1 notch on both sides really changes your effective Q factor at your knees. What we've done here is we've just tested Barry with a 2-degree cleat wedge underneath his left foot. He still feels like he's fighting the stability of this foot just a little bit, although it's about 75% better than what he came in with, so that's a good start. As we wedged his foot, it did tilt his knee away from the top tube, and he ended up with some asymmetrical knee tracking from the midline of the bike, but it wasn't a big positive. So the other thing we're going to try, I've actually just deleted the wedging, and we're going to try him with a thing called a first ray post. Now this is a little trick. If you've got a rider with a dorsiflexed first ray, so let's say you're looking down along the length of their foot and their first ray sits up quite a lot, and it's really quite mobile. A lot of the time they will actually drop that first ray down onto the insole with every pedal stroke, which will then cause a chain reaction which dips their knee across towards the top tube and sometimes causes them to drop their hip on that side as well. But as that first ray is elevating itself off the orthotic and then coming back down with every pedal stroke, the solution to it, you know, they'll feel a little bit better if you wedge the foot, but the solution to it typically is to either alter the orthotic on the top if you've got access to sort of custom orthotic building facilities, and put an actual first ray post underneath that big toe joint, or what we do, just use a little bit of foam underneath the insole. This is a really easy test. We stick it down with a bit of double-sided tape, and this will just stabilize Barry's first ray here from underneath. And if it makes a difference, if it's a positive thing altogether and it doesn't bother him, we might choose to leave this in for a while. Although I do strongly suspect, as I've just explained to Barry, I strongly suspect that what's going on here is the instability that he's feeling in his foot is a side effect of the weakness in his left glute med in particular. So as his leg is driving down on the pedal, his proximal stabilization of that movement is not good enough because he's been adapting around this asymmetry for a long time. And so off bike, the solution is going to be to get Barry to do a whole bunch of, well, very specific strength training exercises, which we will run you through later, as part of a rehabilitation program. Does it still feel like you're fighting the stability of that joint, or does it feel like it's done what you wanted it to do? It has.
Yeah.
So this could be one that we use temporarily.
I'm not as, that sensation of trying to get in diving is not the same.
Good. All right. This is a real easy one to take off. It's just a bit of double-sided tape with a piece of foam, right? Yeah. Again, what I reckon we'll do is leave this on temporarily, and then down the track, if your glute stabilization comes on and you start feeling like that first ray post is getting uncomfortable and it's pushing your knee away from the bike, just take it off. You could stop in the middle of a ride and take it off. Yeah, really easy to do. It's not doing anything very bad, and if it just, because I know that your main gripe with riding is this sense of instability of your left foot. Yeah. If it fixes that so that you can ride happier while you recover from this strength differential that we're going to work on, then it's probably worth doing, even for a week or a month or 3 months or so. So feel free to take it out at any point, mate, and you can always stick it back down if it feels worse when you take it back out.
It actually feels really good. It's just still that.
Yeah, that neurological connection. Yeah, that's the one that'll take time to come good. I have a feeling it'll take you 3 to 6 months to feel really normal again, like 100%. That's about how long it'll take to get all the neurological stuff working properly in this left leg. It's been 7 years, it's been accumulating. One unintended consequence here is that because we've raised your seat so much to suit the more forward cleat positioning, there's a lot more drop to the bars. So you need every bit of that bar height that you've got at the moment. Yeah, I know you've got 40 odd millimeters under the stem and you've got the stem inverted, and I don't think we've got much hope of dropping that. Geometry wise, for your next bike, really tricky. Because what I would tell you to get for your next bike would be something that is both shorter and taller than a Defy. Yeah, and that's going to be tough. Basically, it'll be impossible for you to buy a bike that is too short or too tall. So you just want to get the shortest, tallest bike you possibly can. Turns out most of the problem was where no one was looking, which is that you've got a substantially shorter right leg, and it's not even an ambiguous one. It's like really obvious.
Well, it's funny. I've seen enough of your videos to know that someone can have a medical thing that can actually be helped or assisted with a mechanical option, as it were.
Yeah, you're exactly you're a great case study for that, where you've got this, yes, there's a little underlying injury there, but now I know how it happened as well, because you were wearing shoes that were too tight, but because you were underextending your left leg really badly, you would have also been clawing with your toes inside the shoe, which is why there's a hammer toe on the left second ray. And it's no coincidence that bent toe, that flexed jab toe, is right where the plantar plate tear was. So that's not a coincidence. So you were clawing for most of your life in those shoes, and then it tore. And so when it tore, you lost the ability to claw and stabilize your foot. So then you started to feel asymmetrical. Like it, with the benefit of hindsight, it makes a lot of sense. So I'm going to run you guys quickly through Barry's rehab program here, and this is mostly for your benefit, mate, but while you're on camera, we'll do both at the same time. What we're going to do is try and strength train two muscles that have been extremely lazy. They've been forced to be lazy as part of your compensation strategies on the bike for a long time. And this is in particular your left VMO. Now this one inserts obliquely onto the top inside edge of your kneecap here, Barry, and when it contracts, it pulls the kneecap medially and extends your knee and plays a critical role in stabilizing the rotational position of the knee relative to the femur. The second muscle group is the glute med in particular, your external rotator group. There's also the glute min in there and a couple of little ones, but we'll call them the external rotators. The job of these muscles is to pull the femur externally and also to control that movement on the downstroke, which is what you're really struggling with on the bike, is as this leg is coming down, it's been forced to dip across like this for a long time. So your body has been subconsciously switching the glute med off and switching the VMO off, and they've both wasted away. And you told me as well recently you've actually torn your left quad separately off the bike, and I'll bet you tore it because your VMO was weak. So there was a secondary
because of alcohol, but maybe
could have been too many Guinnesses as well. So what we want to do is strength train these two muscles. Now, the glute first. You've got some access to TheraBand at home. This band is potentially a little bit too easy. I'd rather you used a slightly stronger one for this, but make it as tough as you can so that it's doable, and you can actually bang out 3 sets of 12 of them or so. So you take a wide step to the left and then squat. So step with just one foot and then squat down, loading onto the left side. That's how I like to do it. Keep that leg stable. You can almost watch the kneecap and make sure it moves over the second toe. Come back up and then bring your feet together, step out again. And then lunge down. Perfect. Yep, it's really good. Now these are the classic old clam exercises that everyone does for the glute med, and they have their place. We're going to give these to you as well, so you got a bit of variation. You keep your heels together, your knee bent at 90 degrees, TheraBand around your knee, and then you lift your left knee up off the other one. Hold for a few seconds at the top, and then ease it back down. Pretty straightforward. These work okay. They're not my favourite one, but they work okay. Last but not least, straighten the legs. Just a straightforward abduction. So keep your pelvis sideways and then go straight up. Just lift that leg up and hold for a few seconds and then ease it back down. You might almost want to do this just with leg weight without the extra resistance. Just see how you go with them. I want you to be able to do like 3 sets of 12 of each one, a couple of times a week. So I haven't been clear with that, but whatever you do, don't bother with the right leg. Just do your left leg.
Catch up.
Perfect. Now your VMO, the best way of activating the VMO realistically is to do some seated leg extensions on a gym machine. But if you don't have access to a seated leg extension machine, you can bodge one up at home. So if you've got ankle weights, sit up on your kitchen bench at home. Your kitchen bench is usually 900 millimeters off the ground. You can't use a chair because your foot will be on the ground. Hang the ankle weight off your ankle, lean back on it, like I don't have much room here because I'm a bit crowded, but lean back and then extend the knee. Now as you go up, I want you to turn your foot out about 20 degrees and just do the extensions in terminal extension. So the last 30 degrees of the movement like this. You'll notice as you come up into terminal extension, the VMO contracts much more heavily at the top of the movement, and I want you to focus on that muscle on the inside. You can put your finger on it if you need to. Make sure it's contracting at the top of the movement and pushing your finger up through your jeans or whatever you're wearing, and make sure that it's working properly and go into full terminal extension. So those are really good at isolating it. And then once you've got reasonable capacity to isolate it, I would do some split lunges. These are 2 8s. Come down, back up. Make sure that the knee stays directly over the second toe, yeah? This will also help with your glute med. Like this is like a compound exercise that kind of targets both. You just got to make sure you have good form. Keep it all stable and square. Try not to let your opposite hip drop down like we did before. Keep them stable like this. Make sure your glute med and your VMO are working as you do them. So that's your homework. There's 5 things. I'll write them down so you don't forget them.
Yeah.
And I would do these twice a week for about 2 to 3 months. And then you should be, if it comes back, if you can look at your quads, tense them and go, yeah, no, they're the same size. I have the same degree of ability left and right. Doesn't feel like it's getting tired. Feels like my leg is stable on the bike and I'm having no issues. You can quit and hopefully it never comes back. Because my strong suspicion is you got this way because of riding asymmetrically, and now that you're not riding asymmetrically, it shouldn't come back. And that first ray lift under your left toe, I reckon you'll have to take that out one day. It may be as soon as like 2 weeks from now. Yeah, so don't be afraid to whip it out as soon as you need to. All right, we've finished up here with Barry. Marathon session this morning, mate. We're 2.5 hours in. We've done pretty well here. He's ended up with a 7mm shim underneath his right foot. Now that was completely undiagnosed until he'd walked in here, which is somewhat depressing because it was pretty obvious to me, but here we are. He's also ended up with a 4mm stagger in his cleat position. So we've got his left cleat further forward than his right one to suit his small foot size discrepancy. That was like a small incremental improvement in his general symmetry. We've also moved his cleats forward of where they were. Now Barry had run them a really long way back to try and unload his metatarsal, but I've given him a more normal cleat position because I think he won't need that anymore. We've ended up with G8 level 4 arches on both and a 3mm first ray lift underneath his left foot because he was still just feeling that left foot just dropping across the line of the pedal and not connecting as well as it could. With all of this stuff, Barry, how much better does it feel roughly? Give me a number.
I would probably say comfortably 90% better.
90%. Good. That's a good start. Now we know that he's been riding like this for 8 years?
7, 8 years.
7, 8 years. And I can tell you, you've probably been riding this way for even before that because this leg length difference has been with you your whole life. But when he injured that foot, my suspicion is that he was clawing inside his shoe with that left foot because that was one of the things that we were seeing with you when you were riding was under extension of that left leg and you were towing the pedal asymmetrically with that side. So that hammer toe, that clawed second toe that you got, that is probably a sign that that second toe has been clawing constantly for a very, very long time. And that is probably how you tore the plantar plate ligament. And so this is all sort of dropping into place as we're fitting Barry here. We've got a bit of a better diagnosis for him now. I strongly suspect he's got a chronic plantar plate tear that's sort of calcified, and that's what's then led him to sensing all of this asymmetry. Was once that couldn't work anymore because it was injured, you lost the rest of the movement pattern. So he's got a little bit of residual weakness in his glute and his quad. We're going to get him to work on that, and hopefully the last 10% comes along in the next couple of months. But we've made huge inroads into this, and I'm really happy with how that turned out. And mate, this shim is going to make a massive difference to you. So I appreciate all the effort and time you've put into coming all this way, mate. It was great to meet you. And I've asked Barry if he ever comes over this side of the country again to come and visit me for a checkup. But otherwise, hopefully you won't see me again, mate.
Awesome. Thank you.
If you never have to come all this way, it'll be a good day. Happy riding, mate.
Thanks.